The story begins with Kyle driving his car back home while talking to his wife, Gray, on the phone. He tells her that he is going to take some time off to make up for the past period when he was too busy with work. We learn that Kyle is an American working in construction, and he is currently in Russia because of some projects, while his wife always feels lonely because of his absence. But during the call, Gray hears a strange noise inside the house. Suddenly, someone attacks her and the phone falls from her hand. Kyle hears what is happening, panics, and drives faster to save her. He calls the police on the way, but when he arrives, he finds his wife murdered. The killer tries to escape, so Kyle chases him in anger until they reach a bus. A brutal fight begins between them, ending with both of them falling through the bus window. Kyle suffers serious injuries, and when the police arrive, they find him collapsed next to his wife. They believe he is the murderer and arrest him, while the real killer manages to escape. We then see Kyle in court, where he discovers that his wife's killer was released because there was not enough evidence. Kyle is shocked when his lawyer tells him that the criminal's wealthy family used their influence to pressure the judge. Feeling betrayed by the justice system, Kyle breaks down. He steals a gun and shoots his wife's killer. Days later, he's sentenced to life in prison inside one of Russia's most dangerous prisons. When Kyle arrives at the prison, he finds himself surrounded by the most dangerous criminals. The prison commander, General Ruskov, appears and warns them that there is no place for chaos here, and any attempt to escape means death. Then the guards throw a prisoner who tried to escape in front of everyone, proving that this prison is impossible to break out of. The prisoners then go to hand over their belongings to the prison storage. Kyle secretly hides a picture of his wife inside his sock. At that moment, the head guard, Tulek, approaches him and tells him that his ring looks nice and that he has to hand it over. Kyle doesn't understand him well because he doesn't speak Russian fluently. Tulek gets angry and switches to English, so Kyle explains that it is his wedding ring and he wants to keep it. Tulek gets annoyed by his words, hits him with his baton, takes his wife's picture and throws it on the ground. Then he forcibly takes the ring from Kyle's hand. The other prisoners become scared after seeing what happened. Kyle crawls on the floor in front of them just to pick up his wife's picture. Later, the guards choose a group of prisoners to shave their heads and then take them all to their cells. Kyle feels devastated as he watches Tulek wearing his wedding ring. At night, the guards come to the cell and take the new prisoner who was with Kyle, named Billy. Billy is confused and doesn't understand what is happening. They take him to the cell of another prisoner named Andrea, who controls the prison. After the guards leave the room, Andrea attacks Billy and abuses him because he is new and weak. Kyle hears the noise from his cell and realizes that he is going to face the worst days of his life in prison. The next day, the prisoners leave their cells and go to the prison yard. Kyle sees Billy badly beaten. When he looks at Andrea, the man who attacked Billy, he remembers the man who killed his wife. Without hesitation, Kyle attacks Andrea and starts beating him. But the guards quickly interfere, control the situation, and take Kyle to solitary confinement, known as the Hole, as punishment for causing trouble. When Kyle sees the disgusting condition of the cell, he feels even more broken. He lies on the floor and refuses to eat. Then he tears his clothes, ties them together like a rope, and hangs them from the ceiling to end his life. But the rope breaks and he falls to the ground. He starts hitting his head against the wall from the pain and anger inside him until he becomes exhausted and stops. At that moment, he notices a butterfly flying around the cell and remembers his wife Gray, who was once scared of a butterfly they found inside their house. Then he hears someone crying in pain from the cell next to him. He starts hitting the wall with his hands to make the sound stop, but eventually he decides to eat and keep going, because he wants to survive for Gray. After a few days, the guards take Kyle out and return him to the prison block. Officer Tulek tells him that his life will become easier, but only if he pays the guards money. This time, they put him in a cell with a prisoner named John, a dangerous killer. Kyle enters the room feeling nervous about what might happen to him, but surprisingly, John doesn't say a single word to him. He just spends his time quietly reading his books. The next day, Kyle and the other prisoners are taken outside to work on construction projects. When he returns, his wife's brother visits him and tells him that he will do anything he can to help him get out of this situation. The following day, Kyle goes down to the prison yard with the other inmates. He keeps to himself and walks around without talking to anyone. But the moment Andrea sees him, he throws a basketball at him, trying to provoke him. However, the ball hits another prisoner instead. That prisoner immediately attacks Andrea with his group, and we discover that the prison is controlled by two powerful gangs. gangs. One of them is led by Andrea, while the other group is the one that attacks him. When Talik arrives, he stops the fight and tells them that if they want to fight, they should do it in Sparka, a place where prisoners fight each other for money. After everyone leaves, Kyle notices Billy and goes to check on him. He talks to him and makes sure that he is okay. At that moment, a man in a wheelchair named Malachi approaches them. He is also American and has been imprisoned there for a long time. After they introduce themselves, they ask Kyle about Andrea. He explains that Andrea is a member of the Russian mafia, and they discover that the mafia has a deal with the prison guards, allowing them to control the prison however they want. They then warn Kyle about the crazy prisoner John, telling him that his behavior is unpredictable. That night, Kyle has a nightmare and starts reliving every detail of the night his wife was killed. He even begins talking while he is asleep, which suddenly wakes John up. John attacks him and covers his mouth with his hands to stop him from making any noise, but then he lets him go and tells him never to talk because he loves silence. Kyle is terrified of him and can't sleep for the rest of the night. The next day, Kyle is sitting in the dining hall with the prisoners. Billy and Malachi are with him, and they try to talk about anything that can make their time in prison easier. Suddenly, Andrea and his men come over and start provoking them while they are sitting there, but Kyle doesn't react at all, acting as if Andrea doesn't even exist. Later, Kyle talks to Talik and gives him money to get him moved out of John's cell. Talik realizes that Kyle is American, so he tells him that it will cost him more. Once Kyle doubles the payment, Talik agrees to move him. After that, all the prisoners are taken to the prison arena to start the competition. Malachi explains to them that these fights are nothing more than gambling matches. The guards place bets, the prison general and his men place bets too, and for everyone watching, it's just entertainment. Andrea stands in front of the prisoner from the other gang, the same one he fought with before. The two of them attack each other violently, and a brutal fight begins. It becomes clear that Andrea is stronger and more aggressive than his opponent. Everyone watches closely to see who will win, and in the end, Andrea manages to defeat him. The next day, Kyle goes out to work on the railway tracks that the prisoners are building. Suddenly, one of Andrea's men attacks him and knocks him to the ground. A guard arrives and asks what happened. The prisoner lies and tells him that Kyle was mocking him. The guard then allows him to defend his honor. The prisoner and his friends start beating Kyle because he is American, and they claim he has no right to disrespect Russians. We realize they planned the whole thing just to humiliate him. After that, the guard talks to Kyle and reminds him that he is not in America anymore and shouldn't act like a hero in front of the other prisoners. He then orders the guards to send Kyle back to solitary confinement once again. After 1 month, Kyle is released from solitary confinement. At that moment, Andrea approaches him with his men and starts mocking him, but Kyle doesn't react at all. They continue provoking him until the guards finally step in and stop them. The next day, Kyle is sitting in the dining hall with the other prisoners when Andrea and his group come toward him again. Andrea keeps insulting him, telling him that he is nothing and has no value. This time, Kyle loses control. He follows Andrea and suddenly punches him hard in the face, knocking him to the ground. He keeps beating him, but Andrea's men attack Kyle until the guards interfere and break up the fight. Talik talks to Kyle angrily and tells him that this time he won't leave the hole anytime soon. Kyle is sent back to solitary confinement again, but this time he decides to change the way he thinks. Instead of breaking down, he uses his time to train. Every single day he exercises and pushes himself harder until he becomes stronger. When Kyle finally gets out of the hole, he has been training constantly, even while working on the railway tracks or inside his cell. During heavy rain, while all the prisoners are standing under the shelter, Kyle keeps running around the yard with determination. Talik notices him and decides to put him in Sparka. The next day, Talik organizes a fight between Kyle and Andrea. Kyle stands in front of him, ready for the battle. As soon as the fight begins, both of them attack each other with all their strength, but Andrea lands stronger punches. And even though Kyle has gained muscle during the past months, Andrea controls the fight because of his experience. Unlike Kyle, who spent his whole life as a peaceful person trying to avoid trouble. Still, Kyle keeps fighting and refuses to give up while everyone watches. Suddenly, Andrea attacks him with full force, beating him repeatedly until Kyle can barely see. Andrea drags him across the ground, trying to break his legs against a metal pole, but suddenly, Kyle changes everything. He attacks Andrea and bites his neck with all his rage until he finally takes him down. Kyle lies on the ground screaming like a madman, as if he has suddenly transformed from a man seeking justice into a violent killer. But it doesn't stop there. He starts fighting in the arena every day against different prisoners, and he manages to defeat them all. The bets on him keep increasing day after day because he becomes the winning horse. The prison general becomes happier and happier because of the money he earns from watching Kyle destroy his opponents. However, his friends are disappointed because the man standing in front of them is no longer the Kyle they used to know. After that, Kyle cuts his hair to match his new personality. During a prison visit, he meets his wife's brother, who tells him that he spoke with the American ambassador and promised that he would try to get him released soon. But Kyle tells him that he doesn't want any help and asks him not to visit him again because nothing will change. Later, the prisoners hold a celebration inside the prison for Russia's national holiday. Kyle sits next to John, and while they are listening to music, a huge prisoner approaches him. We learn that his name is Valya. He grabs Kyle's hand and squeezes it to test his strength, then challenges him to a fight before walking away. After that, the prison general gives a speech to the prisoners for the national holiday. During the guard's distraction, Billy secretly starts moving toward the exit, trying to escape, but suddenly Talik and the guards appear and catch him. Talik tells Billy that his days in the prison are now numbered. The real shock comes when Talik goes to Malachi and gives him the medicine he asked for. We discover that Malachi knew about Billy's escape plan and told Talik about it. But what Malachi doesn't know is that John was watching them from a distance. Later, Billy is taken to Valya's cell. Hours pass, and then Talik and the guards return to Valya's cell, only to find Billy badly injured. Kyle sees his friend lying on the ground and realizes he is dying. When Valya comes out of the cell, they discover that he was the one who attacked Billy. After they bury Billy, Kyle goes to the arena the next day to fight Valya, full of anger because of his friend's death. Valya attacks him, but Kyle refuses to fight back, almost as if he is rejecting the entire fight. This makes Valya angry, so he attacks Kyle with full force. But every time Kyle falls, he gets back up without hitting him back. He simply lets Valya walk away or sits back down on the ground. The general watches what is happening and contacts Talik through the radio, asking him what is going on. When Talik approaches Kyle and tells him to continue the fight, Kyle refuses. He tells him that he will not become a toy in their hands and that he will never fight in Sparka again. When the general hears Kyle's answer, he orders Talik to remove him from the arena immediately. That same night, the guards chain Kyle to a metal pole in the middle of the yard. Talik tells him they will not release him until he agrees to fight in Sparka again. Kyle stays chained there for days without giving up or changing his decision. All the prisoners, including the gang members, watch him standing there every day. Meanwhile, John meets Malachi, who had asked him to bring him something, but Malachi doesn't know that this was actually a trap set by John to take revenge because he caused Billy's death. Malachi tries to apologize for what he did, but John refuses to forgive him and finishes him off in his own way. On the other side, Kyle continues standing there even in the heavy rain, while both the prisoners and guards are shocked by his determination. The next day, the gang leader goes with his men to meet the other gang and offers them a truce. He tells them that they need to unite because Kyle shouldn't be a toy in the guards' hands, even if it costs him his life. He explains that if they work together, everyone will win, and indeed, all the prisoners stand in the yard and both gangs refuse to fight. They tell Tolik that they won't fight like animals anymore. Tolik gets extremely angry because of their actions, so he goes to the general and asks him to let him kill Kyle to regain control again. But the general refuses because if they kill him, they will only turn him into a hero. After that, they decide to free Kyle and take him for treatment. There, he starts imagining his wife, Jerry, telling him that she still loves him. When Kyle gets better, they send him back to the hole again, but this time he hears the same screaming sound coming from the cell next to him. Days later, the guards take Kyle at night and bring him to the building where the prisoners' cells are. The general stands in front of everyone and tells them that the prison has lost control and there is no order anymore, so he will create that order himself, even if he has to kill them all. Suddenly, he orders the guards to bring in Milos to fight Kyle. Milos is a huge prisoner who is almost impossible to control. Kyle gets scared and tries to escape, but Milos grabs him and starts beating him brutally, while all the prisoners watch from behind the bars as Kyle struggles to defend himself. Milos starts choking him to death, but Kyle begins hitting the door with his hands, showing that he is giving up and doesn't want to kill him. Suddenly, Milos lets him go and starts hitting the wall with his hands too. That's when Kyle realizes the shocking truth. Milos was the person screaming in the cell next to him back when he was in the hole. And Milos also realizes that Kyle was the one in the next cell who kept hitting the wall all the time. Because of that, Milos refuses to hurt him because he sees Kyle as someone who is also being treated unfairly, just like him. At that moment, Tolik gets angry and threatens Milos with his gun, telling him to keep fighting. He then points the gun at Kyle and decides to kill him, but suddenly Milos attacks him. After that, Milos breaks the cell door, causing it to fall apart. He falls to the ground because he was shot, and Kyle takes off his jacket and covers Milos's face. The prisoners escape from their cells after the door is broken and attack the guards with all their strength. However, the guards have more weapons, and in the end, they manage to regain control of the situation. At that moment, John talks to Kyle and tells him that he has a plan to get him out of prison. He gives him a file containing the murder cases that happened inside the prison over the past years and asks him to deliver it to as many officials as possible. He also tells him that he needs to fight one last time against Valia so the plan can succeed, because whether he wins or loses, the general will eventually get rid of him just like he did before. And indeed, the next day, a brutal fight begins between Kyle and Valia. Even though Valia is huge and extremely strong, Kyle manages to stand against him and land powerful hits until Valia pulls out a knife and attacks him. But the knife hits another prisoner, causing chaos to break out in the arena. In the end, Kyle manages to defeat Valia and wins the fight. After that, Tolik takes Kyle with one of the officers to the place where the prison vehicles are, planning to kill him outside the prison, but they are shocked when John attacks them and beats them. Kyle takes the gun from Tolik and threatens him. Then he unlocks the handcuffs, takes back his wedding ring that Tolik stole from him, and before leaving, he drops the heavy vehicle attached to Tolik's leg on him, making him feel the same humiliation he caused the prisoners. After that, John gives Kyle a guard uniform to wear. Kyle gets into the officer's car and drives away, finally escaping the prison without anyone stopping him. Meanwhile, John goes to the general's office to get rid of the snake's head. When the guards hear the noise, they rush to the office and find the general dead. John then surrenders himself and is taken to trial. On the other side, Kyle has finally escaped from prison, and that's where the movie ends. After everything Kyle went through, was he a hero fighting for justice? Or did he become just like the criminals he hated? Tell us your opinion in the comments.